Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD, General Physician. All my video lectures are for educative purpose. They will be very useful to fourth year students, exam going students. This topic will be useful to you in theory as well as in oral exam and will be very useful to you during your practice hours. You will see sometime a person with a cardiac arrest and you will require to resuscitate that patient. So today we are going to discuss on a topic we call resuscitation. So whenever a person goes into a cardiac arrest or he goes into respiratory arrest followed by cardiac arrest or cardiac arrest is followed by respiratory arrest, you try to resuscitate them. That procedure is called as resuscitation. It is also described as a cardiopulmonary resuscitation or cardiopulmonary brain resuscitation or cardiopulmonary cerebral resuscitation. These are all the terms, but the most common term utilized is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Short form it is called CPR. You can call that as a cardiopulmonary brain resuscitation because you also want to revive brain, or instead of brain you can use the word cerebral resuscitation. You can divide that into basic life support and we call it advanced cardiac life support. And then comes what we call as prolonged life support, where person requires a little prolonged support for maintenance of the life. In this lecture we'll be dealing with only basic life support, or we call resuscitation. Under introduction, indications, contraindications, method, or what are the protocols, complications, little idea regarding a respiratory resuscitation, cardiac resuscitation, and post-resuscitation syndrome or post-resuscitation care. Little, if we go back around 5000 to 3000 BC, first artificial mouth-to-mouth ventilation was given. In 1780, the first attempt was done on a newborn to resuscitate by blowing. Then in 1874, there was experimental direct cardiac massage. And then after a very long period in 1901, a successful direct cardiac massage was done in a man. And then in 1946, the first experimental indirect cardiac massage and defibrillation was attempted. And then came indirect cardiac massage in 1960. And now, every year there is an update. What method should be used, how you should give, what should be the duration, how fast, etc. So it is now a common word utilized. Push hard, push fast. Meaning, when you give a thumb or a pressure over the chest, sorry, chest should compress minimum 5 to 6 centimeter, and in 1 minute minimum 100, right from 100 up to 120 push should be done in 1 minute. A full meaning of cardiopulmonary: cardio means heart, pulmonary means lung, resuscitate is to revive. So by doing that procedure, you are reviving heart, lungs, and you are maintaining the circulation to the vital organ like brain. That's why it was also called as a cardiopulmonary brain resuscitation. So you revive or you recover. That was the meaning. So resuscitation means to recover. So cardiopulmonary resuscitation is a technique by which it was described as a basic life support for oxygenating the brain and heart until appropriate definitive medical treatment can restore the normal heart and ventilatory action, and that is by lung. So initially you support them, that is called cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and then when you shift the person to an institute where you can now, by using the instruments, drugs, etc., you restore the normal function of the heart and normal function of the lung, that we call as advanced cardiac life support. So CPR is a procedure where there is a sequence of procedure performed to restore the circulation of oxygenated blood after sudden pulmonary, that is respiratory or cardiac arrest, in which a chest compression is given, supported along with pulmonary ventilation by anyone who knows how to do it, anywhere, immediately, without any other equipment. This is very, very important. Without the help of other equipment. That is described as a cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or you call as a part of basic life support. How will you identify that the person has gone into cardiac arrest? Person will be collapsed. Indirectly we say that person will be unconscious. If you check for the pulse, there is no pulse, no heart sounds, no breathing effort, or we call apnea. Don't waste time. Start CPR immediately, because time is money. So indications for CPR: cardiac arrest, like in case of a sudden infant death syndrome, traumatic injury, submersion in water or any fluid, poisoning. Even in case of a sepsis also, sometimes person can go into cardiac arrest. Airway obstruction, severe bronchial asthma, pneumonia, metabolic disorders, cardiac arrhythmias, etc. Now, good number of time it is a circle. We call cardiac arrest can end with respiratory arrest, or respiratory arrest may be initially, say like in case of a bronchial asthma, pneumonia, metabolic disorders, or airway obstruction, even submersion, etc., or even poisoning. So respiratory arrest will occur first, and after 3 to 4 minutes person will go into cardiac arrest because of severe hypoxia. These are some of the common causes for production of a cardiac arrest, where we say 6H and 6T. H stands for hypoxia, severe hypotension, hypothermia, hypoglycemia, H ion elevation we call as acidosis, and hypokalemia. These are the common conditions which can produce cardiac arrest, as well as 6T, cardiac tamponade, tension pneumothorax, pulmonary thromboembolism, acute MI. Again there in acute MI you get a coronary artery thrombosis, chest trauma, and toxicity, that is poisoning. So in all these conditions, whether it is this group or whether it is this group, person can develop cardiac arrest. And for development of the cardiac arrest, this etiology will result into few of these conditions. The most common is ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation, or you can have asystole, or we call pulseless electrical activity. So that will be the stage. In these two stages, that is asystole and pulseless electrical activity, they are called, they cannot be shocked. So they are non-shockable. So you cannot defibrillate them. But you can defibrillate only if the person has got ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia. So in those cases, defibrillation will help. But in case of asystole and pulseless electrical activity, it will not be of any help. So a person, when he goes into a stage of apnea, where there is no respiratory effort at all for a prolonged period, we call that as respiratory arrest. The most common, we have already mentioned, airway obstruction, respiratory muscle undergoes weakness, like say in case of a neuromuscular junction involvement in botulism, or maybe say even with the anesthesia, post anesthesia, or maybe because of exhaustion, and there is decreased respiratory drive. If respiratory arrest is prolonged, it will end with cardiac arrest within 3 to 4 minutes. So the common causes: drowning, stroke, foreign body, smoke inhalation, drug overdose, suffocation, accidental injuries, coma, etc. And again in coma they can aspirate and they can drown themselves. Also, if a person gets epiglottis involvement, like in case of a croup, or even epiglottis paralysis. Indirectly, any person who you find to be unconscious, always try to find out whether he is in a cardiac arrest or not. If pulse is absent, there is no respiratory effort, pupils are dilated, do suspect cardiac arrest and start CPR. Hence, if any person who is suspected to have a cardiac arrest or respiratory arrest, or there is a combination of both, person is having severe apnea, there is no pulse, no heart sounds, and person is unconscious, do start with CPR. The first purpose of CPR is to maintain circulation, airway and breathing. So to maintain clear airway, oxygenate heart and lung, to restore the function of heart and lung, to prevent the brain death, and to maintain the circulation in the brain and heart. And this will help to save the life of a patient. And to maintain breathing by external ventilation, that is B, and maintain the blood circulation by external cardiac massage is we call C. But now first always we say that maintain circulation, that is C, then we say that maintain airway, and then maintain ventilation, that is called CAP. C comes first, then comes airway, and then comes breathing by external ventilation. So to restore cardiopulmonary functioning and prevent irreversible brain damage because of severe hypoxia. Ideally, there is no contraindication to CPR, but there are few. You must keep it in mind. Now, suppose if you find a person to be unconscious, but heart sounds are audible, pulse may be feeble, and there is some respiration which is going on. In that patient, CPR is contraindicated. You have to identify the cause, why, and then treat the basic cause. If the person has got a very bad rib fractures, multiple rib fractures, following a trauma, and person has got a flail chest, again CPR is contraindicated. Or if a person has got a congenital deformities, very bad deformities, say hemivertebra, severe kyphoscoliosis, or if a person has got severe osteoporosis, again CPR will be contraindicated. At the same time, it is said that do not resuscitate when the decision is not to resuscitate has been noted. Like, short form it is called DNR, do not resuscitate. So if you find any particular finding which tells you that this person do not require a resuscitation, do not resuscitate them. Classical example, a fully conscious patient. A person who is declared dead and there is brain death. Now resuscitation is not going to help at all. So these are some of the conditions that there is a sign of definite biological death. So you have declared a person to be dead. There is a witness information that the cardiac arrest has happened at least 15 minutes before you start resuscitation. Now they say that up to 30 minutes. Terminal stage of an incurable disease like malignant disease. The person has got clear-cut trauma, a very bad, say, head injury, and you feel that person has got almost no chance of survival, or person is having a disease where the person is living will only in the country when the constitution accept it, that person willingly wants to stop resuscitation. We call do not attempt resuscitation, has been written on the file, or person has to be executed. And if the age of the patient is not there is no restriction to CPR, do not practice on a person, do not practice CPR on a person where a person is alcoholic or there is a bleach wash done over the face. Even if the person who has got a cold or a sore throat, if is positive hepatitis B or C, known case, or is infected by HIV or AIDS, or you have an infection, either hepatitis B or C or HIV infection, or you have got a throat infection, you should not attempt CPR. There are two basic conditions what you have to do during a CPR, we call as a high quality CPR, is push hard, push fast. Meaning of push fast, minimum 100 push in 1 minute, maximum is 120, but push should not be less than 100. And push hard means at least compression depth should be minimum 2 inches, or we say that 5 centimeter. This is a must. So less than 100 or more than 120 is not good. Less than 2 or 2 inches or 5 centimeter or greater than 6 centimeter is also not good. And allow full recoil after each compression. Allow full recoil after each compression. So that should be done. And the pauses between the compressions should be minimized. And ventilate at least 2 breaths after 30 compression. Indirectly, in 1 minute, at least 8 breaths should be given. Means 2 breaths at the interval of 30 compression. Means every 15 seconds you should give 2 breaths. And in 15 seconds you should give 30 compressions. This is called as a high quality CPR. This is a chart you can go through. This is what is to be done in a children between age of 1 year to puberty and infants. This is in adult. At your leisure time you can go through. So it is said that in first 4 minutes the brain damage is unlikely if CPR is started. If it takes more than 4 to 6 minutes, brain damage is possible. After 10 minutes, brain damage is always there. And more than 10 minutes, severe brain damage, or we call it irreversible brain damage. So once the person is not revived adequately after a CPR for minimum 10 minutes, the chances of recovery as far as the brain damage is concerned is very, very remote. So always it is said that cardiac arrest will be followed by respiratory arrest, or respiratory arrest will be followed by cardiac arrest. Recognize them as early as possible. Early CPR is absolutely necessary, and if defibrillator is available, then in case of ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation, you should defibrillate first and then start CPR. But in absence of defibrillator not available, CPR must be continued. And even if defibrillator is available, before you prepare, before you make the diagnosis, CPR should be started. And then you can subject them to what we call as a post cardiac arrest care or post CPR care. So early recognition of a critically ill patient and early recognition of the person who has gone in a cardiac arrest or respiratory arrest is absolutely necessary. By and large, there are 3 steps which are being divided. It is called phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 is a basic life support where you give external cardiac compression, chest compression, maintain the airway pattern, and maintain the breathing by mouth-to-mouth breathing or by embouche bag. This is what we call as a CAP, or we call phase 1, or we call as a basic life support. And as soon as you get arrival of a advanced cardiac life support, where you utilize drug, you take ECG, and you can defibrillate. You can use the defibrillator. And after that, post-resuscitation care can be started. And when you maintain that particular thing, after restoration of the spontaneous breathing, you call that as a prolonged life support, and that is a part of post resuscitation care, or we call post cardiac arrest care. So basic life support should be followed by ACLS, that is advanced, where you take then advantage of airway instruments, endotracheal tubes, artificial respiration, defibrillators, means you utilize equipments. While here there is no support with equipments, that we call the basic life support. So in a basic life support, circulation, airway, breathing, and then if defibrillator is available, you can defibrillate. And then ACLS is followed by a support for maintenance of life, that is called prolonged life support, that is indirectly we call as post resuscitation care. So this is a basic life support what you give when there is no pulse, no blood pressure, no respiration. We call as a cardiac arrest and respiratory arrest. And in that, they say that there is a chain of survival where first initially you call for a help. In India, 181. One person will start giving CPR. If defibrillator is available, try to identify whether he is having shockable rhythm or non-shockable rhythm. If it is shockable rhythm like ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation, you can give a DC shock and then support them by what we call is the ACLS as soon as the facilities are available, by drugs, by embouche bag or artificial ventilations, oxygen, etc. So basic life support, once you find the person is unresponsive, no breathing effort, and you look for the rhythm. If it is shockable, then you give a DC shock, try to defibrillate. If you can't identify and if it is not shockable, continue with CPR, 30 compression and 2 breath, that should be continued, and you recheck in between, whether what type of rhythm he is having. So a high quality CPR, we have already mentioned, at least 100 compression in a minute, and after every 30 compression you should have a 2 breath efforts, and when you give a compression, at least chest should be compressed minimum 5 centimeter, but not more than 6 centimeter, not more than 2.5 inches, and allow a complete chest recoil after each compression. Minimize the interruption in a chest compression and avoid excessive ventilation. These are the basic parameter for a best quality CPR. And if the person is having ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia, defibrillate them, check the rhythm again. If it is shockable, you can give a second shock. So resume CPR immediately for 2 minutes. Find out the rhythm, whether it is reverted back to normal sinus rhythm or not. And then if it has not reverted back, continue with CPR. You can again give a shock. But if it is not shockable, you will have to continue with CPR and check the rhythm every 2 minutes. So shockable rhythms are 3 times more likely to survive. Survival will depend upon whether and how quickly the defibrillator is performed. For shockable rhythm, defibrillation is most important than any other intervention. So defibrillation should be done along with CPR. Defibrillation takes priority over the CPR, ventilation, vascular access and drugs if it is a shockable rhythm. Very, very important. So once you get the facilities of ACLS, circulation by cardiac massage, airway management by equipments, then you can continue breathing with an advanced techniques. You can defibrillate by manual defibrillators, and you can start drug therapy. So this will be advanced cardiac life support. I have already uploaded one video lectures on advanced cardiac life support, ACLS. You can go through that. All this I have discussed in detail. That is advanced life support for adult. I have discussed that. In this also, you can have a pause. You can go through the slides. This is what we call as a chain of survival. Call for the help, early recognition, defibrillation, early assess, and as soon as the ACLS is available, person should be started with drugs, artificial ventilation, oxygen, etc. All those supportive treatments should be started. And then post resuscitation care by prolonged life support. These are what are called as a chain decided by different institutes. There is a minor change here and there. Everything else remains same. At your leisure time, you can go through. It is called chain of survival. So till person recovers completely. This is in children. Usually type of the CPR is different from adult. And this is chain of survival. Prevention, CPR, emergency medical service, and then advanced life support. And if there is a shockable rhythm, he should be defibrillated. So prevention of arrest is always best. So early recognition of a critically ill patient is absolutely necessary. And if you recognize them early, you can prevent the arrest. And if you prevent the arrest, you may not require even CPR. But once there is an arrest, early CPR, if shockable rhythm, rapid defibrillation, and then subject them to ACLS, that is drug monitoring, respiratory supports, etc. And then person goes to what we call the post-arrest treatment or post-resuscitation care, where there is a restoration of spontaneous circulation. So now person will require a post-arrest therapy for all electrolyte imbalance, hypothermia, etc. So once a person is found collapsed, unresponsive, person is not breathing, there is no breathing effort, person do not have circulation. Now you require CPR. So you start CPR. If person has got circulation, you don't require a CPR. So once you find the person is having no circulation, no respiratory effort, no breathing, now he will require CPR. And then you find out whether it is shockable or not. If it is ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, shock, and then give a CPR. This is same thing, arrange 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go through your at leisure time. What is there in an adult, what is there in a children, and what is there in a infants. All those are mentioned very clearly. There are multiple charts. Some people say that approach safety, check response, shout for help, open airway, check breathing, call 108, and start CPR, that is 30 chest compression. We already mentioned minimum 5 centimeter compression should be there, 100 in 1 minute, and after every 30 chest compression, 2 rescue breaths. So this is called high quality CPR. Some persons mention this way: check responsiveness, call for help, remove clothing, open airway, check for breathing, give 2 breaths, check for pulse, and begin compression. Now they say that first check airway, etc. Check responsiveness, call for help, yes, remove clothing, look for open airway, check for pulse, begin compression, and start artificial ventilation. After 30 compression, minimum 2 rescue breathing should be done. So circulation or compression comes first, airway second, and then breathing support. This is 2015 updates, and update is going on almost nearly every year. It remains same. This is another way. If you have got a mechanical support from outside, you can utilize that chest compression, because while giving a compression, person, if it is one person, he can get fatigue. So chest compression, airway and breathing. Chest compression is for circulation, airway and breathing is for maintaining ventilation. Same what we have mentioned before, same thing you have to continue. So it should not be too fast, it should not be too hard, but still we always use the word push fast, push hard. Push fast means between 100 to 120 per minute compression, and push hard means minimum 5 centimeter dip should be there. So compression, decompression, so you should allow the chest to recoil so that the blood circulation will be maintained. Compression should not be too slow, should not be too fast, and there should not be incomplete chest wall recoil, because it will diminish the preload. So all this should be kept in mind. This is called mechanical CPR. So this will maintain the chest compression, but you will have to maintain the airway simultaneously. So if this facilities is available, you can utilize this mechanical CPR. You can adjust the amount of chest compression and also the rate. We already mentioned these are some of the pathophysiology which can produce cardiac arrest. We call as H and T. We have already shown you before. And what you do in a CPR quality, repeatedly it has been mentioned in multiple slides. You can go through your leisure. This is not the ideal way. Yes, when the two peoples are available, but both should cooperate. So after 30 compression, 2 rescue breaths, not individually. So this should be maintained. Now there is always a question, when I can stop CPR? First and foremost, as soon as the person gets restoration of spontaneous circulation, person becomes conscious, or ACLS team takes over, or rescue get tired, he should not attempt CPR continuously. But if these 3 are available, CPR can be stopped and you can hand it over to ACLS team. Now suppose if there is no availability of ACLS, you have started CPR and person gets restoration of spontaneous circulation and person becomes conscious. We say person is revived. You can stop. Or trained help arrives, that is ACLS team arrives. Or person rescue has become exhausted, he cannot continue. Or if there is an unsafe scene, again you should stop CPR. Or person says that do not resuscitate now because it is not going to help. Say person is declared brain dead. Or person has got some disease where he is less likely to survive. Or already the CPR has been given for nearly 30 minutes and still there is no restoration of spontaneous circulation. Or there is a controversial for CPR in that patient. If person has got fully dilated pupil, there is no improvement in color of skin, there is no chest movement at all, the person do not attempt any swallowing and person is not struggling, this means person has not shown any response. But now if the person starts having a free movement of chest wall, there is an improvement in the color of the skin, now pupil starts reacting, person is having a swallowing reflex and person is struggling while you are giving a chest compression or you are giving a rescue breath, stop CPR. Or if initial ECG was showing you asystole and now after resuscitation it is showing your normal sinus rhythm, or there is a prolonged interval between the estimated time of arrest and initiation of rescue, that it is almost more than 15 minutes, do not start CPR. Or if the person age is such where CPR is not feasible or is having a severe comorbid disease where the CPR becomes difficult, or there is a total absence of brainstem reflexes for more than 15 minutes, or if the CO2 level is less than 10 and already the rescue has been done for more than 10 minutes, that is almost they say 20 minutes, some people use 30 minutes, and there is no restoration of spontaneous circulation, you can stop CPR. CPR may not give you good results if there is a delay in starting, if improper procedure is being done, and if there is no ACLS support, or there is a delay in a defibrillation, CPR will fail. Or if the person has got a terminal disease, unmanageable disease like massive myocardial infarction, etc., severe head injury, all those conditions. Now there are other terms also they utilize like DRS ABCD. The meaning of DRS is danger, D for danger, R for response. So look for the danger signs, look for response, and S is shout for help. And then you can go for C, A, B, and then you go for D. C for circulation, A for airway, B for breathing, and D for defibrillation and drugs. Shout for help, that is 108 in India, and some people use this response, assessment and position. So short form it is called RAP. Here it is called doctor's ABCD, whichever word you want to use. So in a RAP, first look for response, assess the person, give the proper position, start with ABCD. Now this has been changed to CABD and then E for environment, etc. There are other words also utilized. So this has been changed to CAB and then D. So D is for drugs, disability and differentiation, and also for defibrillation. So defibrillation, if it is shockable, you must defibrillate first and then go for CAP. that is circulation, airway and breathing, and supported by drugs, etc. This is if a single rescue is available, if more than 2 rescue are available. These are the basic guidelines. At your leisure time you can go through. This is one partner if one rescue is available, if 2 rescue are available, what you should do. Those are the guidelines. This is in infants. At your leisure time you can go through. This is after person has been resuscitated and there is a spontaneous circulation has been obtained. This is the position which you should give. Don't put them in a supine, don't put them into absolutely lateral, but this should be the ideal position after revival. There are some complications of CPR. Most common complication, rib fractures, very common in children and old age. Fracture sternum, quite common in children. Rib may also get separated, and because of rib fracture, the chances of pneumothorax, hemothorax, lung contusion, liver laceration, and whenever you get a liver laceration and even a fractured ribs, multiple fractured ribs, there is always a chance of fat embolization. If person is infected and he is rescuing the person, he might transmit hepatitis virus or HIV infection to a person, or from the patient it can be easily transmitted to the person who is giving CPR. And there is always a chance of infection being transmitted from oral cavity to a person who is rescuing and the person who is rescued. So these are all. You can also get the damage to the pericardium resulting into pericardial tamponade. Person can aspirate. You can have even a traumatic injury to the blood vessels like aorta. You can have a coronary vessel injury. You can have a diaphragm injury, even hemopericardium. All those complications can occur during CPR. Once in a while you will come across a person with a foreign body. We call it a choking relief. So when not to do a choking relief, if the person is able to give you answer, if he can talk or if he is coughing nicely, call for 108. Do not attempt abdominal thrust if he can talk or he can have a cough reflex. And if the person is 100% suspected to have a foreign body airway obstruction, place the fist just above the umbilicus and give 5 upward thrust. We call upward and inward thrust. While in an obese individual and pregnant person, do keep it in mind the chances of complications. This is the technique which is described as a Heimlich technique, and in a children this is a technique. So usually you give a blow on the back, chest thrust, and you try to remove the object if it is found in the oral cavity. Always it should be done by an expert as far as possible. So back slap, finger sweep in the oral cavity, chest thrust, all this should be done properly, because child can aspirate and can die. There is also something called as a cardiocerebral resuscitation, where sometimes you may require a chest compression almost up to 200, but by and large 100 is more than enough, and this should be supported by a good quantity of oxygen supply, IV epinephrine, and you might require even an endotracheal intubation or tracheostomy. Then you can put them on an artificial respiration. There is something called as a respiratory resuscitation, where you will need oxygen. We call 2 rescue breathing, and you might require an endotracheal intubation and artificial ventilatory supports, or you might even require a tracheostomy supported by artificial ventilation. And specifically, this is very, very important in a person who has got type 1 or type 2 respiratory failure. So in those cases, you might require before a person goes into respiratory arrest. So that is a respiratory resuscitation. Sometimes when a person gets a facial injury, it becomes extremely difficult. You might require a tracheostomy. In cardiac resuscitation, you will require IV fluids, vasopressors, antiarrhythmics, cardioversion, defibrillation, ICD, external cardiac massage, very, very rarely open cardiac massage. This may be required in a person who is in a cardiac arrest and who is not revived by CPR. So in a cardiac resuscitation, you might require a lot of things. You require a very good ACLS team. In a post-resuscitation, there are good number of complications you should take care, like pulmonary hypertension, pneumonia, what we call as aspiration pneumonia, lung laceration, pneumothorax, metabolic acidosis, severe hypotension, person can have a seizures, hypoglycemia, etc. There will be lot of complications. Even hypothermia can be there, or hypothermia can be there. And this is a chart which suggests all possible algorithm which you can follow, which was published in 2015. It has been updated even in 2020. So you can go through this at your leisure time. What you should do in a post cardiac arrest: optimize ventilation and oxygenation, treat hypotension, look for STEMI, try to re-establish the coronary reperfusion by even going for PCI, then maintain the temperature, and you can go for advanced critical care. So all those, and try to rule out all this possibility, and try to, if they are present, you should control them. So ventilation, IV bolus, epinephrine, dopamine, norepinephrine to maintain the blood pressure should be utilized. This is called ultrasound guided resuscitation strategy, can be utilized. At your leisure time, you can go through. Some person may require a prolonged life support, and that can be done by what we call as a extracorporeal cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Short form, it is called as a ECPR, extracorporeal CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And there is also one technology which is called as a veno-arterial extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, that is ECMO. So ECMO is now very expensive, but still it is very, very useful. So post cardiac arrest needs no flow, person is still anoxic, there is a minimal flow, person is still ischemic, and then later on when the person establishes spontaneous circulation, now means person has gone into reperfusion stage. And during that, always look for myocardial dysfunction, anoxic damage, and multi-organ damage, and try to revive as much as possible and as early as possible. So stage 1, hemodynamics. Stage 2, normalize the cardiovascular function as early as possible so that you get improvement in the microcirculation and you can prevent the brain damage. In stage 3, try to normalize the systemic indices like what we call as a hepatic function, pancreatic function, renal functions, respiratory function, then control bacteremia, etc. And in stage 3, localized or generalized infection should be controlled, and all metabolic derangement should be brought back to a normal. And during that particular care, you might require epinephrine, atropine, lidocaine, magnesium, dopamine, dobutamine, soda bicarb, calcium gluconate, and there is big list depending upon the condition. And you might require a peripheral IV or central IV line. Sometime you might require an intraosseous, very commonly required in children, but occasionally in adult. And good number of time person may require endotracheal intubation. These are all different drugs which are being required during that post resuscitation care. These are the findings which will tell you that useful clinical findings that are associated with poor neurological outcome. They are they are all mentioned in detail. At your leisure time, you can go through. If these are the findings, by and large, the prognosis is poor. So I end my lecture here. I feel this will be helpful to you. Once you go for private practice, you see someone in your family, or when you are visiting to some patient, you see a person is unconscious, there is no pulse, no blood pressure, no heart sounds, there is no respiratory effort, you suspect person has gone in cardiac arrest and respiratory arrest, you will require CPR, or what we call the basic life support, and you call for a help by ACLST. Till that, you have to continue with CPR. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. If you like this video lecture, please press button like. You can subscribe. If you feel that it will be important to your friends and your groups, you can share with your groups. So at the end of this lecture, I thank you all for taking out time. I know that your time is very valuable, and I appreciate you for spending some of the time with me. See you in next lecture.